Let's get started. First thing I want to talk about is this word. And I want you to take this word into consideration tonight. This is the most powerful word in the English language, at least as it pertains to you. Everything in your life starts with perspective. It starts with your perspective, and everything starts there. From how much joy you get out of the things worth cherishing, from your ability to navigate and overcome challenge. Every decision you make, it starts with how you perceive the choices in front of you, right? So just keep that in mind as we go through the night. Think about it, don't make any judgments on it, just keep it in mind. That's all I ask. You can say that I'm wrong afterwards, but for the one hour, I ask you to keep that in mind. How tonight's gonna go, we're gonna start with my story. Look, I didn't come off the mountain carrying tablets. I'm not a spiritual guide or leader. I'm not quoting scripture. I didn't go to college for psychology. So I'm not talking theory here. What I'm talking about is my direct experience. Everything that I've gone through and everything that I do today to be the positive person that I am, that I hope I'll show to you tonight, is direct experience. It is my life, and whether you think it works for you or not, it's working for someone else, so it's worth considering, right? Second thing we're going to talk about is, what is a positive paradigm? What is positivity? What does it mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to the people around you? Why are you here? What is the point of it all? And hopefully at the end of that, I've given you enough of a picture of how it's a positive thing or how it's a good thing for you to focus on. You'll be asking, okay, how do I do it, right? So I'm going to try and get through my story because tonight's not about me. I'm going to try and get through it briefly, but you need to know, where I came up with all this stuff. So let's start with that. I grew up here in Marin. You're all here, so you know how cool of a place it is, regardless of what Jon Stewart says. I grew up with two very, very supportive and disciplined parents. Not totally disciplined on me, but they lived disciplined, right? So, and any long-term parents can tell you that it's how you live that teaches your kids. I think that's probably universal. So I couldn't have asked for better parents. I also had an older sister who taught me a whole slew of things. How to enjoy yourself when you're getting in trouble. How to really, really dislike and equally piss off authority. But she also taught me, some pretty valuable things: how to respect women and how to stand up for injustice when you see it. So I had a great life growing up. I have friendships that started when I was a child and are still there today. My friends I call my family, and that group has grown exponentially. A lot of you out there are that group. So I had an awesome time growing up. I've always been a positive person, but it's easy to be positive when things are going well, right? If you're happy, you're positive. That's kind of byproduct. But it always defined me a little bit. My positivity was a little uncomfortable for some people. It's always been something that's been a big part of my life, and that carried through to my 20s. I found some early success in business that afforded me some means and gave me the chance to establish some habits that I probably shouldn't have established, but a young guy with very young maturity, making a decent amount of money, that can happen. But, nothing too bad. I was having a good life. I was having a good time. I chalked it up to a young guy having fun. That success afforded me an opportunity to link up with some guys who enjoyed life even more than I did, or at least had the means to. So in 2005, I started a company with three other guys, and the next few years were a blur of looking for the next level of party or an enjoyment. An untold or an unknown number of weekends in Las Vegas and Arizona. Not exactly what you should be doing with your money or your time, but again, I chalked it up to being young, and I always said, I've got time. I've got time to live the way I want to live. I knew it wasn't going to satisfy me forever, but I was having fun with it. And I apologize to my in-laws right now, but I was I was finding a lot of satisfaction in the pursuit of women. And and it was, it was a dissatisfying life that I was looking for satisfaction in the wrong things in, right? But I think we all go through some version of that. I would expect most of us do. So by 2010, I had seen a couple of friends go through some pretty life-changing experiences. And it started to put me back on track. It started to put me back into that place where, I need to see what's valuable to me in life, and I need to work towards that. By 2011, I had found the woman that I knew I was going to marry. She was just it for me. I wanted her to raise my children and everything. And so I was feeling great, and I actually left the company that I was working with, and I started a new career, and I was excited. I was like that teenage excitement. You remember when everything was just fun? I felt that about life again. And then October of 2011 rolled around. The summer of 2011 was a lot of fun, and then October came up, and things changed a little bit. I had a bulge in my shoulder that I thought was a tear. I was working out a lot and playing handball. I thought I tore a ligament or something. And after a 3-week diagnosis process, I was finally diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma. It's a pediatric cancer. You're not supposed to get it above the age of 25. I was 29 at the time. And, being that it was a 3-week diagnosis, I was kind of, I would say, let down easy. Like, I had to come to levels of understanding of the outcome. So it wasn't the out of the blue, hit you in the face type of diagnosis that a lot of people go through. So I went through all the questions that you go through with a cancer diagnosis. Am I going to die? If I live, how long am I going to live for? What's that life going to be like after the treatment I got to go through? You go through those questions. It's not an easy thing to be diagnosed with a disease. I mean, I had a 60-40 chance of survival, so I was like, odds are in my favor, or whatever, And I had this interesting thing happen as I was looking back on my life. I had this feeling of euphoria. I realized that I had an amazing life. At almost 30 years old, I wasn't even 30 yet, and I had traveled to some pretty awesome places in the world. I had multi-decade friendships. I had an amazing family. I had known success and failure in business. And I had found the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. You could be 90 years old and someone would tell you that's a good life. So I had this feeling of euphoria. I was like, everything else is frosting. This life from here on out is a gift. I finally recognized and realized for myself what the gift of life is. And being able to put that in my pocket was huge. It allowed me to move forward with my day very, very strongly. That feeling was followed up very quickly with screw cancer. I was pissed off at it, and I wanted to beat it just to spite it. I was just mad at it. And so I started treatment. The protocol for Ewing sarcoma is typically 17 rounds of chemotherapy, 5 to 6 different drugs, all of them really bad, surgery most likely, and potentially radiation. At least that was my protocol. So I went through 6 rounds of chemotherapy, and it was bad. It was everything that you hear about chemo. It was nausea and fatigue and not feeling good and losing your hair and losing all your weight. I mean, it's not fun. But the reality of it is my chemos were 21 days apart, and I spent most of my days out in the hills hiking, exploring Marin, having fun. I was happy. It didn't take away my life like you would expect it to. So then I got into surgery, and they took the upper part of my humerus bone out. They replaced it with someone who was a little less fortunate than I was, and had been a donor. And they put this long titanium rod in my bone and the donor bone with a titanium ball that fits into my my shoulder socket. I have a lot of fun at airports right now. But 27 staples later, I was sewed up. I was good. I remember I was being wheeled out of the surgery. It wasn't as bad as I thought. It was a 6-7 hour surgery. I was being wheeled out of it, and my parents and my lady were walking down the hallway, and I was yelling at them to get out of the way, like still joking, still having fun. By the day I got home, I was taking out the trash. Had to sleep sitting up for 6 weeks and was in a sling for months, but I was still happy. I was still alive. This perspective, right? So, went back into chemotherapy, and chemotherapy is cumulative. So the longer you're in it, the worse it makes you feel. And ended up with a couple of stints in the hospital, and fought with my doctor a little bit about ending the entire protocol. But I stopped 3 chemos early. They wanted me to do 17. I did 14. And he fought with me a little bit, but then he was like, all right, I think you're good. Go get back to living. Get back to living. So I did. This is what chemo looks like. You lose all sense of vanity and self when you lose your eyebrows, your hair, 20% of your body weight. You've got scars. And I still had the port in me. This is a plastic thing that goes under your skin that they jab every time they're going to put chemotherapy into you, so that it goes through a tube through your neck, through your vein, into your heart, and gets dispersed into your body. The toxins get efficiently dispersed. Again, it's not fun. It's not a fun process. But I remember sitting there and being in this space, and one of the things that I said to myself, you can take away my manhood, basically, my vanity, the muscle, the body that I had built up, my ability to feel like I was an attractive man to my woman, but screw you if you're going to take away my happiness. You're not going to take away my smile. And again, I was fighting cancer in that. I never stopped smiling through the process. As hard as it got, I stayed positive. And I don't, maybe that's just something that was ingrained in me because I hadn't started working at my positivity yet. I did a lot of the things that I do now for my positivity, but it wasn't intentional. I was just doing them because I enjoyed them. But again, Doc said, get back to life, get back to living, and so I did. I asked that woman to marry me. She had spent a year looking after a man that she was with for a year before my diagnosis, and she was unwavering in her support. So now all I wanted to do was make her happy for the rest of my life. This wasn't really a question. She was going to marry me one way or another. Fortunately, she didn't put up a lot of resistance. We had this amazing weekend in Napa, and it was storybook. You can't write this kind of stuff. It was beautiful. We really got back to living. We went to Hawaii, spent 2 weeks out there living it up, got back to just life, I had a couple of bachelor parties. One was my own. One was one of my best friends, and we got after it. We had some fun. But I didn't change a lot about my life. My perspective had changed, and so my life changed. You couldn't bring me down. There was no bad days. Still tough days, but no bad days, right? I was excited about life. I got back to work. Things were going great. We planned our wedding. It was going to be in October. This was like a weekend. This wasn't a wedding. This was going to be a weekend party. We were going to get there on Wednesday and leave on Sunday or Monday, and we were going to party the whole time. It was going to be a blast. So that was going to happen October 5th. And August rolled around, August of 2013, rolled around, and I went in for a routine blood checkup, basically to just check up on my cancer. And things were out of whack. You can get stuff online immediately now. So I remember I was out in the parking lot, and I called my doctor and said, hey, take a look at this. And he's like, yeah, that looks different. Let's come on in. Let's get some more testing done. And a couple of days pass, and all of a sudden I'm heading in for another test, and he's like, we don't need to test anymore. You have treatment-related acute myeloid leukemia. That means the chemo that I went through gave me leukemia. And when he told me this, he was crying. Sorry, Doc. He's here. I won't point you out, but he was crying. First thing that went through my head was, wow, this guy cares about me. This is a doctor who cares. Second thing that went through my mind was, oh, shit. This is bad. And it was. It was a bad prognosis. There were a lot of ifs to even getting to a place where we could talk about survival. There was a glimmer of hope, though. But it was bad. So he had a bed ready for me to go into the hospital right then, and I needed a little time. I needed a day to do some soul searching and decide on whether chemotherapy was something I wanted to get back involved in. So I went home, and Sarah got off work and came home, and let me paint this picture for you. The woman or the spouse or the person that you love the most in life, and all you want to do is make happy for the remainder of your life. You have to sit down across from her on the couch and say, you know that wedding we've been planning? You know that life we've been getting ready to get started? I'm sorry, we don't get to have that wedding. And we don't get to have that wedding because I have cancer again, and this time, it's really bad. It's really bad. Hardest thing in the world to say to someone you love, to someone all you want to do is make happy. So we did some soul searching that day, a lot of crying, a lot of trying to figure it out. And after talking to some alternative treatment centers, we're like, okay, let's go with this, because my doctor had said one thing to me. He said, I want to cure you. This isn't palliative. I'm not trying to extend your life. My goal is to cure you. And the alternative treatment centers that I talked to said, if it's not working, then come on down after that. So I figured, okay, I'll leave it in my pocket. I'll go with Doc. I trusted him. And the next day I showed up in the hospital and I started chemotherapy again. The day after that, Sarah, being the champion that she is, showed up at the hospital with both of our parents and a marriage license. And we got married while I was receiving chemotherapy in my hospital room. Again, storybook. Life is so much more beautiful than any book that could ever be written, because it's real. I would never change this. Receiving chemotherapy while I say my I do's, I would never change that for a million years. It was hard. It's not the way you dream it, but it was beautiful. So we went through 4 months of me living at the hospital here in Terra Linda at Kaiser, all in preparation while I was getting chemotherapy. I didn't feel that bad, but I just couldn't go outside because I had no immune system. So I stayed in the hospital, and that led up to November of 2013. I went down to Stanford. I spent a week in full-body radiation and the worst chemotherapy I had gone through to date. At this point, my body was so depleted with everything that it was a matter of days that I would have been gone had I not received a bone marrow transplant. The guy who was the donor is a hero. That's the only way he can be defined, in more ways than one. But I received a bone marrow transplant, and the next month of my life was awful. I don't want to say awful. It felt awful. It was not a fun experience. I laid in the fetal position for a month. I was fed through a tube. I couldn't eat because my throat was filled with mouth sores, and I couldn't even swallow my own spit. Couldn't talk. So I was fed through my veins. I was on a pain drip that I was allowed to push every 15 minutes. I pushed it every 15 minutes. They upped my dose 4 times. Going to the bathroom was like a monumental challenge. Taking a shower, which you have to do every day to keep away infection, because infection can kill you. You're in a shower with tubes that are feeding you and keeping you off pain, coming over the door that you have to keep from getting wet. You're shaking. It's an awful, awful experience. But each day was closer to the other side of it. So I just kept going. And, this, it's easy when it's a long time of fighting to give up when it's just you. I don't know if it is easy, but I can imagine it would be. But when you got someone to live for, this right here, I wasn't going anywhere. I was going to fight. And eventually I got to the other side of it. I had to stay in Stanford near Stanford for a couple of months after I got out of the hospital because anything can get you if you get a cold or get an infection. Anything can get you for the next couple of months. But eventually I got back and I got to the other side of it. I got to the other side of it. The worst challenge in my life, the worst thing I could ever imagine happening was over. Now, I'm still dealing with symptoms of it. I'm still dealing with ramifications from it. But I was on the other side. And so we got back to living again. And we got to throw a party on our 1-year anniversary, August of 2014. Our second wedding. It was our 1-year anniversary. It was what we had dreamed. I had a horrible time. I had a horrible, horrible time. It was everything we dreamed it would be. People ask me about this. I tell this story to people, and they're like, God, that must have been the worst thing ever. It must have been the most horrible time of your life. I can honestly tell you that the last few years of my life have been the happiest to date. Going through all that, I've been the happiest I have ever been, and that's because of one reason. My perspective changed. From that initial diagnosis, I realized the gift in life, and my perspective changed. Let's talk about what a positive paradigm is. That's a lot to go through, that story. Just telling it exhausts me. The word positive can be defined, and this is just off web dictionaries or whatever, but the word positive can be defined as a good, affirmative, or constructive quality or attribute. Paradigm can be defined as a set of assumptions, concepts, values, and practices that constitute a way of viewing reality. So to me, what I say or what I define as a positive paradigm is a way to view your reality from a set of concepts, assumptions, values, and practices that are constructive. And constructive is very important. We're going to get more into that, but being constructive is the equivalent of positivity to me. I want to be clear that positivity is not optimism. Optimism is the confidence that everything's going to be okay. Glass is half full, it's all going to work out. And I'm an optimistic guy, I'm not knocking it. But that's not what positivity is. Life doesn't work out sometimes. I can tell you that, Positivity is what prepares you for when it doesn't. Positivity is a way of living so that challenge doesn't destroy you. Let's talk about challenge for a minute. What are some of the universal truths in life? Breath, eating, breathing, death. Even death is a universal truth. If you live a full life, you will experience all of these things. I would say challenge is the same thing. Now, we all deal with different variations or different types of challenge, sure. But everyone, if you live a full life, is going to deal with challenge, right? All universal truths serve a purpose. Breath, drinking, eating, these are obvious, right? Even death serves as the end of life. They all serve a purpose. Well, so if that's true, then challenge must also serve a purpose. When you recognize that challenge has purpose in your life, you take away its power. It has nothing on you. There's nothing that challenge can do to you if you know that it's serving a purpose, because you know there's an end to it. There's Purpose, there's got to be some place where that's applied, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to have tough days. We'll talk a little bit for a minute about my tough days right now, but you're not going to have tough days. You're going to have tough days. It's not a magic pill. Accepting and embracing challenge is not something that makes it go away. I believe in the law of attraction. I believe that you can will a lot into your world, but I don't think you can will a winning lotto ticket into your pocket. I've tried. But understanding things is a really big deal. Having the ability to see through your challenges it just takes away its power. It gives you the ability to endure whatever you're going through, knowing there's another side to it. Some of the things that I'm going through right now. First of all, my toes are killing me. I've had 6 hangnails because of the 6 of them. I went into the foot doctor and he laughed at me. He's like, I've never seen this before. And that's because I got sensitive skin and I'm just still recovering. But I have GVHD, which is graft versus host disease. Some nights I'll have to get up every half an hour and walk around and take painkillers just to be comfortable in some sense of it. I have sun sensitivity. If I'm in it too much, look at me. This is basically from mowing a lawn. I did spend the day at the beach the other day, but before that, I look like this too. So a little bit of sun can really fry me. Failed IVF cycles. So I can't have kids naturally. Sarah and I wanted, as soon as I was ready, as soon as the doc gave me a free sign or freedom to go do it, we wanted to start having a kid. If you don't know about the cost of IVF, it's like a down payment on a home. We had multiple failed cycles of that, and we felt like, God, this is our time. We deserve to get a little happiness in our world now. You know what I mean? That was hard. It's financially devastating. That's after the devastation of cancer financially. It is, no matter how good your benefits are, it's crushing. But we worked it out. We're like, okay, let's go through this. And to have it not work was tough. My point in all this is you have tough days. Knowing the challenge is temporary or serves a purpose does not take away its pain. Loss sucks. Disease sucks. Things hurt. But you get through. You can endure it. And that's where understanding really comes in. Again, perspective, right? So I want to take just a couple of minutes and talk about outside of bigger than you, the purpose of positivity. So I don't know how many times in my life, even before cancer, people have been like, dude, thank you for your positivity. You make me so happy just being around you. People are thanking me for being happy. That's just weird. You affect the people around you. You do, with whatever energy you have, whether it's negative or positive. So you have to think about what kind of effect you want to have on the people that are in your life. You have to think about that, because how you act affects them. It makes a big difference. We also are living in a world that's becoming increasingly aware of a global consciousness, of our connectivity. Science is starting to prove it. There's a guy by the name of Dr. Dean Radin, and it's ironic. I found him on Facebook. I stayed off of Facebook for years and years and years because I always thought it was negative. But I found this guy. I saw an interview. Someone had interviewed him, and I really liked what he was saying, so I sent him an email for the purpose of this, thinking, let's see if this guy responds. I did not think he was going to. By like 2 hours later, he was like, yeah, I got 20 minutes tomorrow at 11 a.m. Call me. I'm like, all right, let's see what he has to say. This is a guy who, and I'm not going to go too far into what he's doing, but I just want to give you a cursory overview because if you're interested in this kind of thing, you should look him up. He's just up the road in like Petaluma, Santa Rosa. This is a guy who has put out evidence. Basically, he's using these random number generators. These are machines that are created to create randomness. And he started by putting them out at situations where there was going to be a lot of attention on one thing: the O.J. Simpson trial, the verdict, the Princess Diana's funeral. Then, because of the results he was getting, he started to put out these things just everywhere just so he could catch things that you couldn't predict. 9/11, the tsunami. What he found in all these events was the attention of the mass of people created patterns in machines. Now, what that suggests, and I'll tell you that talking to him, he has a really tough time talking about this. He's a scientist. He does not like when his evidence is suggesting something he can't explain. But the reality of it is mass attention or intention is creating change in the physical world. Now, whether you believe that or not, suspend skepticism for a minute and imagine that possibility. What kind of legacy do you want to leave in this world? What kind of impact do you want to have in this world? Even if you think you die and that's it, how do you want to live while you're here? Because if our attention and intention can possibly change the physical world we live in, you might be interested in being a little more positive and good in this space. I do. Let's get back to you. This is a fun exercise. So you're not going to have to share it. I want you to have fun with it. If you have paper, write it down. If you don't, do it in your head. I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes around this. I want you to think about or write the introduction someone would give you if you were 90 years old and receiving a Lifetime Introduction Award or a Lifetime Achievement Award. So how would they introduce you? You're 90 years old and you deserve a Lifetime Achievement Award. How would someone introduce you? I'll share mine and I'll embarrass myself with this, but you don't have to share yours, so have fun with it. I have the privilege of introducing, first of all, I wrote this on an airplane to New York in 5 minutes. I've since written a much better one, but I figured I'd leave that one for the purpose of tonight. I have the privilege of introducing Robert Bradford tonight. We'd be here all night if I listed everything this man has done, so I'll stick with the bigger items for now. Yeah. After co-founding a successful brokerage at the age of 25 and winning 2 battles with cancer by the time he was 33, Robert embarked on an extremely successful financial advising career where he held 100% client retention and satisfaction, a feat very few other advisors can claim. He also launched the restaurant chain Good to Go, providing a healthy alternative to the fast food industry, and has grown that franchise to over 100 stores. Clearly, he has known success in business, but his real accomplishments have been in philanthropy. Once he became recognized as one of the top public speakers in the country, Robert brought so much awareness to the fight against cancer, he was able to raise billions of dollars to fund our new paradigm in fighting the disease. We've now cured every form of cancer and are well on our way to ridding it from the world altogether. Finally, Robert's positivity paradigms for grade school children have helped create a new class of youth in this country that promises to lead us into a bright future. The program is being copied by countries across the planet. All right. I have a problem with ambition. I get that. But the point of this, have some fun with it. Take a couple of minutes and just think about what lofty, stupid, crazy goals. I just cured cancer. Think about what crazy goals you could possibly come up with and just write it for yourself in your head. Take a couple of minutes for that. Think about it. And it doesn't matter how old you are either. Some of you, might be like, it's too late for me. I'm looking at you, Dad. Participate. You guys get the picture. So, what are the barriers to this? What's going to keep you from those kinds of goals? Don't everyone start at once, What kind of barriers are there to achieving the things that you don't think are possible to achieve? Fear? Other people? Yeah. Health? Money? Time? Resources? So, all those things, they all stand in our way, right? I call bullshit. And the reason I call bullshit is because there are people who do it in the face of all those things. Oprah, do you know her story? If you don't, you should check it out. She's got a storied past. And she is the wealthiest self-made woman on earth. Tony Robbins, one of his favorite stories is about how he was so poor he couldn't afford Thanksgiving dinner, and some neighbor dropped off a full Thanksgiving dinner to him, and it inspired him to start his life, to go out and do some good in his world. Steve Jobs, he didn't grow up poor or anything, but he had no resources when he started being Steve Jobs. He dropped out of college. He was living on a roommate's floor. He was, bringing cans in for dollars, and he was sitting in on classes. They couldn't afford the college he was going to, so he would just sit in. Wasn't getting any credit for it, but he was learning some. Richard Branson, I read recently on LinkedIn, said he has started over 400 companies. Do you think that man would agree with you that time is an issue? He's got kids too. No. These things are in our head. You and you alone are the only thing standing in the way of your goals. You have the power to achieve anything you want to, at any age you want to. The pursuit of your goals is where the thrill comes in. So we've all heard the cliche, it's not the destination, it's the journey, right? There's a reason it's the cliche. This is one of my goals tonight, to stand up in front of a group of people and talk about perspective and positivity. You think if I got into a car accident on the way here, I'd regret it? If I died on the way here, I'd regret that I didn't achieve that goal? No, I'd be dead. But you know what I would have gotten is all of the love and enjoyment and all of the things that I got out of putting this event together, all the work that I put into it. I got something from that. Even if there's an afterlife, I don't think I'd be too concerned that I didn't receive or I didn't finally do this event if I didn't make it to here. It's the working towards the goal that we get fulfillment out of, right? So, I'll let that sit with you as you want to. To recap, listen, your experience, everything in life, everything you do, everything that matters to you starts with your perspective, okay? That is just too important not to take in. If you can use your perspective the way you want it, if you can turn it into a tool for yourself, it's going to be powerful. I don't have bad days. Imagine if you could say that. I don't know, maybe some of you can. Maybe you should be up here talking with me because there are not many of us who can say, I don't have bad days. I have tough days, sure, but every day for me is a gift. Even the toughest days that I have, I am appreciative of them. And that's because of perspective. That's because of how I look at life. And that's, I was forced into that. But you don't have to be forced into it to get it. And it's going to affect everyone around you. And that'll build you up even further, but it's going to affect everyone in the world. If that's not worth working on your positivity and who you are, I don't know what is. So let's talk about kind of how to do it, right? How do I build a positive paradigm? How am I positive in tough times? You're not going to like this. You have to work at it. How many hours have you spent this week or are you going to spend this week at your job? How many hours are you going to spend at the gym or working on your yoga pose or your golf swing? How many hours are you going to spend working on you? We spend all this time working on the elements of our happiness and never work on our happiness. Doesn't make sense. It's like focusing on the transmission when you're building a car. No, the point is the car. You focus there, and then the elements are something that you implement. The elements of your life are things that are good, and there are elements to some of those things, like, golf can be a very therapeutic thing. So going out and playing golf could be a really good thing for you. It matters what your intention is on that. If you're going out to drink a 12-pack of beers and laugh at your buddies, that's not really working on yourself. But if you're, really getting involved in the process of it, or yoga can be very meditative. I know that from my wife. There are things in there that can help your life. But if you're not focusing on who you are and you're not working on it, what are you doing? What are we doing here? We should be spending time on our world, on who we are, on what we care about, on us, our inner selves. Just like any goal in life, it takes work, right? So some of the things that I do, I'll talk about a few of them, but it really doesn't make a difference what you do. I'll say that again. It makes no difference what you do as long as you're doing something and the intention is solely to better yourself. That's what matters. For me, a few of the things that I do, these are some of the important ones. Nightly check-ins. Every single night, I write down 3 things that I appreciate and 1 thing that I'm excited about. 3 things that I appreciate from that day and 1 thing that I'm excited about for tomorrow. And I did this even through the toughest month of my life, right? Sometimes the thing I appreciated was I didn't die today. As long as you feel it and you really appreciate that, it doesn't matter what it is. But by doing this, I end my day, and this is always the last thing I do. It has to be the last thing that I do. But as long as I can sit there and feel the goodness in what I'm getting, or what I'm talking about, or what I'm thinking about, or writing down, then it ends my day with gratitude. And then having something I'm excited about tomorrow, I wake up and I'm like, oh yeah, I get to do this. It's like every day you wake up and you're starting an interview at a job you really want. So that's a good one. That's a good one that I like to do a lot. Meditation is a controversial thing in some spaces. I used to think it was completely inaccessible. I thought it was something that only people who had bloodlines back in India or Japan had access to, at least the right way to do it, right? I thought anyone else who was doing it was probably LSD. These people aren't doing it right. I finally started to do it and realized that I was doing it wrong all the time, so I could never create a practice of it. Meditation is about simplicity. Meditation is about sitting with yourself and not sleeping, but being consciously restful, and it has profound effects on who you are. It makes a very big difference, but the point is that it's simple. You cannot get too complicated in it, and that is a very important part. It's worth trying, it's worth doing. I promise you, if you just sit there for 20 minutes and think, you will get a lot out of it. This event came from meditation. I let my mind run one night, and I was like, I should do an event. You don't have to get mad at yourself if you're doing it wrong. There is no wrong way to do it. Just sit for 20 minutes with nothing else, silence, and see where that leads you, see where that takes you. The point is to consciously rest. What's the next one? Control your environment. So priming. Again, I'm not a psychologist, so I will probably get parts of this wrong. But priming in psychology means the subtle influences on your subconscious that result in some form of, reaction within your body. You don't even know it's happening. So one of the more famous studies of this is At a college, they sent students down a hallway. They timed them in the hallway. They put them into a room. They made them do an experiment where they had to pull 4 words out of a 5-word grouping and make a sentence. They let them do the experiment, and then they timed them on the way back out of the hallway. Now, in those groupings, what they didn't realize were words that they considered were connotated with elderly. Things like Florida, things like wrinkles. And when they timed them on the way out of this experiment, they walked slower. And the idea is that because they were thinking about older people, they were walking like them, right? There's plenty of experiments like this. So if you don't like that one, take your pick. But the point is that by priming someone, you can make influence on their lives. So if that's true, how are you priming yourself? Think about that for a minute. Do you watch catty reality shows at night? Is that your view of reality for a half an hour or an hour? What do you talk about with people at work, at the water cooler? Now you're spending multiple hours of your week with the worst view of people you could possibly have. How could you look at people in a good way that way? You have to be conscious of what you're priming yourself with. My biggest problem, if I'm in traffic and I like to play music that makes me want to drive fast, God, that's the worst. I get so frustrated. And I have to remind myself, dude, you're priming yourself to be frustrated right now. And you have to be conscious of what you're priming yourself with. What influences your paradigm? What influences your perspective? It's like we talked about in the beginning. These things that you allowed to be, and it doesn't mean you can't watch a horror flick. Just be conscious of it. Have intention around it. Go, I'm going to watch this. It's not going to have a good effect on my subconscious. Maybe I'll do something better afterwards. Control your environment. Believe in the possibility. I love this one because I just get excited when I do it. In the mornings, shower, waiting for my car to warm up, whatever it is, I think about opportunity. I think about possibility. And it's a huge thing. It's massive because it opens you up to what's out there, right? You're replacing your concern or your worries with opportunity and what is possible in this world. And by doing that, you open yourself up to it. It's like when you decide on a car, I'm going to buy that car. You see them everywhere. Doesn't mean there's more cars on the road. It's just you're open to it. You can do that with opportunity. You can do that with possibility, right? So if every morning when you wake up, you start your day by going, what's possible today? Not, am I going to get a flat tire, but maybe I'll get a promotion. Doesn't matter what it is. Just think about something that's possible, something good, some kind of opportunity, and you'll be more open to it. You'll be more aware of it. You will start to see things open up in your life if you're open to them. This is the most important thing you can do. Do something good for others. There is nothing like the feeling of doing something for someone else in this world. You cannot touch that feeling. And if you disagree with that, it means you haven't touched the feeling yet. You haven't gotten the experience of doing something good for other people. It is an incredible feeling, and it's contagious and addictive, and it'll make you want to do good all the time. This is a great quote that I really like. If you're not making someone else's life better, you're wasting your time. I don't know where I got it from, but someone said it and I loved it. Because I really believe that. I believe if I'm not doing something for someone else, then there's no reason for me to be here. You have to make it regular. You have to make it a habit, because that's where you get the full benefit out of it. The higher the sacrifice, the bigger the reward. That doesn't mean it can't be simple. You'll get more out of the more you do, but it can be simple. One of my favorite things that I've done, I went around, I put lotto tickets on people's windshields in an envelope, just $1 scratchers. And I sat at a cafe across the street and I watched people walk up to their cars. They came up, they thought they had tickets. Pissed off. This elderly couple comes up. Dad, the man is just annoyed, and he comes up, curmudgeonly opens the thing up, and then he kind of smiles and looks around. His wife is beaming, just like so happy that she has a scratcher, And this guy is just, you can just see satisfaction in his soul at that point. He's just a happy person because his wife is thrilled scratching away, I saw another guy come up. He was in a suit, obviously got out of a bad meeting. He was pissed off. Walks up, gets in his car, sees there's something on his windshield, thinks it's a ticket, and you can just he's almost punching the steering wheel. Just pissed. Gets out, pulls it in, opens it up. I'm getting punked, right? He thinks he's getting punked. He's ready to punch whoever's punking him too. And I guess he won some because he gets in his car, he scratches it, gets back out, goes to the liquor store that's right at the end of the block, and comes out putting cash in his wallet. Imagine for a minute if you came out of a pissed off, horrible meeting and how your drive home would be, maybe even dangerous, and $1 put on your windshield changes everything. That's from someone who just wanted to, spend an hour doing something good. It can be as little as going to the grocery store and helping people who are less capable of carrying their groceries. Help them out. Just hang out. Go to the streets corner where people are panhandling. Not while they're panhandling, but hold up a sign that says, I don't want your money, I just want you to have a good day. See what kind of reactions you get from that. It doesn't have to be big. It has to be regular. There has to be some sacrifice. It has to be 100% intentional on someone else's benefit. And it will reward you more than anything you've ever had in your entire life. That's just a few things that I do. And you have the ability to be a person who is constantly positive and constantly influencing people in a great way, and you can have no bad days. It is possible. It is possible. I'm living proof of it. So I'm going to allow people to get their exit plan if they want here. Everyone can leave, but I'm going to stick around. If anyone who wants to ask specific questions, talk to me about it, then I'm here. But I really want to say thank you. I appreciate you guys all coming out here. This is fun for me. And I hope to do more. So one little housekeeping thing, I got a feedback box out on the table out there. This is my first one. If there's something that you think I could do better, if there's something you would like to see, please let me know. If there's something you really liked or you want to write a testimonial, I'll find a way to use it. I promise. But I really appreciate you all coming out. It means the world to me. So thank you. Thank you.